Never in my wildest of dreams have I thought that I would be the one writing on this platform. Sure, I've been reading stories of different people since I was 13, but if you had said to me that one day I would be the one writing here, one of these bizarre stories, I don't know, it just seems too good to be true, I wouldn't have believed you. Yet here I am. Hey guys, my name's Charlotte and I'm an orphan, or at least I thought so until yesterday. Let me give you guys a bit of background so that you can understand better. It all began when I was 8 years of age. My twin brother Adrian and I lost our mom. It was the most devastating moment of our lives. Our mother was all we had, as we had not seen our father since we were 9. We were told that he had to go on some important business and would be back, any day. So we waited and waited, however our mother left us before he could return. From then on, we lived with our Aunt Lydia and her children. They're the only family that we have. It isn't a nice family, but it helps get by, so I guess calling it a family isn't that wrong. Aunt Lydia is our mother's elder sister, but she's nothing like her. On one hand, our mother was kind, gentle, and cared about others' feelings. Aunt Lydia could not be less bothered. Can you believe that we were only 12 when she told us that her father had abandoned us when we were very young and he would never ever come back? I still remember how we suddenly went from being motherless to complete orphans in a split second. Aunt Lydia lived in a big house. It was much bigger and fancier than the modest home we used to live in with our mother. From outside, it seemed like we were moving up in the world. But soon enough, Adrian and I realized that all that is glitter is not gold. Aunt Lydia was always distressed in the latest fashion, wore the most expensive jewelry, and threw extravagant parties. Meanwhile, Adrian and I lived modestly. We did not get new clothing often, and when we did, they were never the kind that we liked. Our school supplies were basic, and we never got to go on trips or enjoy the luxuries that Aunt Lydia indulged in. She always told us that money was tight, and we had to be careful with our spending. It was confusing seeing her live so extravagantly while we were being told to be frugal. I'm not complaining. I know we probably are alive only because of her, but you can't explain these things to a 13, 14-year-old kid. It felt really bad when she would get herself and her children all kind of delicacies, but me and my brother would have to have toasted bread and canned tomato soup for dinner. In fact, why should I even lie here? Aren't I here to vent? The truth is, I hated at Aunt Lydia's. It was like being trapped in a beautiful prison. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Her house was big and fancy, full of these expensive furniture and decorations. But for Adrian and me, it was a place of constant struggle and disappointment. When we first moved in, Aunt Lydia promised to take care of us. But it did not take long for us to realize that her idea of taking care of us was very different from that of what we expected. Adrian and I also had to do most of the household chores since we were 12. Aunt Lydia hired a maid for herself, but we were expected to clean our own room, do the laundry, and help with the cooking. One summer, she went on a 2-week vacation and left us behind to take care of the house. She gave strict instructions and threatened to punish us if anything went wrong. We spent those weeks working hard while she enjoyed herself on a beach somewhere. You might think if our day-to-day life was difficult, there must be some days that were good. Well, this can't be far from the truth. Forget normal, good days, even our birthdays were mostly ignored or treated like any other day. I remember our 13th birthday very clearly. We woke up hoping for a little celebration, maybe a small cake or even a kind word. Instead, Aunt Lydia spent the entire day shopping for herself. She did not even acknowledge me and my brother's birthday until late into the evening. When she handed us a cheap card and told us to be grateful. I found out later that she had thrown a lavish party for one of her friends the same week. Complete with a huge cake and a fancy decoration? This isn't just it. One of the worst memories I have is when I got sick. I remember I had a high fever and felt terrible. Aunt Lydia accused me of faking it to get out of school, and she even refused to take me to the doctor, saying that we could not afford unnecessary medical bills. It was only after Adrian insisted and I became very visibly worse than she finally relented. Even then, she complained about the cost the whole time. My brother and I are 16 now. We've been paying for all of our extra needs that Aunt Lydia deemed a waste of money ourselves. Well, this included buying school supplies or paying for extracurricular activities, and I still remember how my brother had to sell newspapers for a whole month. Early in the morning, when he wanted to join a local soccer team. Well, when he had asked Aunt Lydia for the registration fee, she told him it was a waste of money and time. Instead, she spent a fortune on spa treatments, and he was only 13 at the time. I guess you guys can understand now that even though I'm a grateful person, she took us when we had no one. I can't help but resent her deeply. Now, let's come to the main and bizarre reason. It was like any other day yesterday, and I was walking home from school. Suddenly, a man approached me, and he looked ragged. His clothes were dirty, and he called out my name. Charlotte. The way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. He then mentioned Adrian. How did this stranger know our names? He must have noticed the confusion and fear on my face because he quickly introduced himself. He said his name was Michael and claimed to be our father. Well, I was stunned, and for years we believed our father had abandoned us. But now this man out of nowhere just claims to be our dad. It felt like a really bad joke. I didn't know what to do. So I tried to back off, but he seemed to have an understand it because he took 2 steps back himself and asked me to calm down. He promised that he won't harm me and all he needs is for me to hear him out once. He started recounting details about our mother and our childhood. He mentioned things that only someone who knew us well would know. He talked about how my mother loved to, sing us lullabies at night, and how she always made pancakes on Sunday morning. He described a little scar Adrian had on his knee from a fall when he was 5. These were not things a stranger could ever possibly know. But still, it was hard to believe him. He started to explain that he's been searching for us for many years, but before he could complete his explanation, I ran away as fast as I could, and I came back home. I went straight to my room and pulled out my mother's photo album. Unfortunately, it had no pictures of our father. The man looked similar, but it was too big of a coincidence that he was our dad. I know running away was stupid, but what else was I supposed to do? Believe that suddenly, after all these years, our father is back for us? If he really is our father, and if so, where had he been all these years? How come he's only back now, and why? I can't even recollect the number of times I've hoped that he would come back and save us. Now that he's possibly here, I don't even know what to do or think. Anyways, what do you guys think I should do? Should I have listened to that man further? Did I do the right thing in running away? Please let me know. Update number 1. Hey guys, so I'm here for an update, and you guys are awesome. I did not expect to get so many comments on my story. This is really wild. I've received so many kind comments and wise advice that it made me feel, why I had not written anything on this platform before. I have never had something so bizarre to share. Some of you were hilarious. You suggested that I should ask Aunt Lydia for help, lol. Well, it's not really your fault. The thing is, I should have mentioned this earlier, our father's name or anything related to his existence is a taboo in our home. The last time his name was officially taken under the roof was when she told us, with no sympathy whatsoever, that our father abandoned our mom and us long ago, and it's because of this that she was burdened with the task of taking care of us. I remember how one time my brother asked for his picture for a family tree school project. Well, let's just say that he did not receive dinner for 2 nights. So clearly we could not have asked Aunt Lydia anything about the man. I didn't see him after that too, so eventually he was pushed to the back of my mind. Until about 2 weeks from the day I first posted, I saw the man again. He was strolling near our school, clearly waiting for someone, and this time I had my brother with me, so I felt a little confident. As soon as we crossed by him, as expected, he tried to stop us and begged us to hear him out. Adrian tried to shoo him away, but I calmed him and told him the situation. He was just as shocked as I was, but decided to give the man a chance. So the man, or Michael, as he told us, started by recounting details about our mother and our childhood. Details so precise that only someone who could have been there would have known them. He repeated some of the memories for Adrian that he had already told me. These memories, these intimate details brought tears to my eyes because they were true. They were real. He explained that he had been searching for us for years, a fact that hit me like a ton of bricks. He said that after our mother died, Aunt Lydia took us in and cut us all off in all the attempts to reach us. According to him, Lydia had kept us hidden to control the inheritance our mother left for us. Well, this was shocking. Inheritance? We never knew of any inheritance, and neither was anything such ever mentioned to us. Michael went on to describe how he had tried to contact us many times. He sent letters, he made phone calls, and he even tried to come and visit us. But Lydia was always blocking every single one of his efforts. Yeah, he explained that each time he got close, Lydia would find a way to push him back, keeping us in the dark about his existence. He explained how he had spent all of his resources trying to find us, how he drained his savings and even borrowed money, all in the hope of reuniting with us. Well, this explained his poor state, and it made so much sense why he looked and felt familiar, yet we couldn't recognize him. Well, it was hard to process all this information. I wanted to believe him, but years of Lydia's lies made it difficult. Still, there was something about Michael's story that felt genuine. His details were accurate, his emotions too raw to be fabricated, but I could not just take his words for it. I told him exactly that, and how, though I want to, I just can't take his word for it. My brother agreed, and Michael's face fell, but he understood. He asked whether we'd at least be willing to see him again. Our summer vacations were starting, and we were leaving for our grandmother's place in 2 days. I told him so and promised to meet him in a month's time and left. Maybe it was reckless to promise him or even think about trusting him, yet we both feel that something about him seems familiar. We don't know who to ask or what to do, but we both knew it was time for us to learn the real truth about our father. I'll keep you guys updated. Until then, please take care. Update number 2. Well, it's been over a month since I last updated, and trust me, it's been a colorful one. First of all, it was the longest peace we had had in years. The thing is, our aunt always has to be on her best behavior in front of our grandmother. I know parents don't usually have favorites, but our mother was her favorite daughter, and so she loved us more since we are the last living memory of her. Anyways, I was determined to find the truth. I know I couldn't ask anyone, so I began snooping around my aunt, checking her phone, listening to her calls in secrecy. At first, it seemed like a hopeless task. Aunt Lydia had done an excellent job of keeping any information about our past well hidden. Every attempt to find old documents or photos was met with frustration. Adrian and I searched through the drawers, the closets, and even the basement, but we came up empty-handed. Lydia had erased nearly every trace of our father from our home, and it felt like we were chasing shadows. One evening, as I sat in my room, I remembered a conversation I had overheard years ago. It was between Aunt Lydia and our grandmother. They were talking about some of our mother's belongings that had been stored in the attic at our grandmother's house. It was a long shot, but I felt a glimmer of hope. I decided to talk to Adrian about it, and we agreed to check out the attic the next weekend. We tried to act casual. We didn't want to raise any suspicion. So we spent some time chatting with her before making our way to the attic. The attic was dusty, cluttered with space, full of old furniture boxes and forgotten memories. It felt like stepping into a time capsule. We started going through the boxes methodically, searching for anything that might give us clues about our mother's past, but it was all to no avail. I don't even know what came over me, but I decided, you know what, I'll check my grandmother's room next. At first we found nothing, and I started to doubt that we would ever find anything. But then the deepest corner of her cupboard, we discovered a large weathered trunk. It looked like it had not been touched in years. Inside the trunk were photo albums, letters, and various documents. As we sifted through them, we came across our mother's wedding album. The photos were a mix of joy and nostalgia, showing our parents on their wedding day. So we began searching further, and what I found next absolutely blew my mind. At the bottom of the trunk, carefully wrapped in a cloth, we found our mother's will. I quickly unfolded the document, and Adrian and I read it together. The will strictly stated that anyone who took our guardianship would inherit 70% of our mother's fortune until we turned 18 years of age. After that, the money was to be divided, with 40% going to me, 40% to Adrian, and 20% to the guardian. This was a shocking revelation. Aunt Lydia had never revealed anything about the will to us, and she always made it seem like we were a burden to her, but the will painted a very different picture. It became clear that Lydia had been lying to us all along, manipulating us to keep control of our inheritance. She had used our mother's money for her own lavish lifestyle while we lived modestly, and we were made to feel like burdens. Finding the will was a turning point. It confirmed everything Michael had told us and made Lydia's deceit undeniable. I was angry. How could she ignore our mother's will like that, and how could she keep our father away from us? I knew there was only one way of uncovering the truth, which was to let our father confront our aunt. I just have to figure out how and when. Do you guys have any idea? Update number 3. Hey guys, I guess my aunt should have listened to our grandmother when said one reaps what one sows, because that's exactly what's happening to her. It's been 6 months since I last updated, and newsflash, my aunt's children have abandoned her, and why? Because she no longer has access to our money. LOL. Let me resume from where I left off. After I found my mother's will at my grandmother's house, I began gathering as much information as possible, and one day I went to my grandmother's while she was working and I offered to help her with the finances as I was studying the same. I went through financial records, looking for any discrepancies, and it was a long process, and I spent hours poring over bank statements and receipts. Eventually, my efforts paid off. After hours of tallying, the bank statements revealed Aunt Lydia's financial misconduct. They showed how she had been spending more than half of our inheritance on herself, indulging in extravagant purchases and luxurious outings. Though I already knew the truth, it was shocking to see the extent of her greed laid out in black and white. Once I had all the evidence, I knew all I had to do was wait for the perfect time to reveal her truth, for the whole family. Soon enough, the opportunity presented itself. My cousin's brother's birthday was next month, and the whole family would be there. So I chose that to be the day of the big revelation. Once we were back at our house, I reached out to Michael, our long-lost father, asking him to be there to share his story and provide additional proof of his identity to, help us. Finally, my cousin's birthday arrived. Everyone gathered around the cake when I said that there was one guest yet to arrive. They all looked puzzled and asked me, who it was. That's when our father, Michael, came in. He had cleaned up well by the time and looked as good as he did when we were young. Everyone was shocked to see him, and the look on Aunt Lydia's face. She looked like she had seen a ghost. However, she quickly resumed her act and shouted at my father, asking him what he was doing there. I told him I invited him, and she looked at me so furious and asked me to not believe any lie he may say. But I stopped her mid-sentence and told her I believed, not one but my mother's will. Like Aunt Lydia, many of our relatives were shocked too, but for an entirely different reason. Aunt Lydia, pale as a ghost, stammered, How did you? I told them everything I had found and presented the evidence I gathered, showing the bank statements that proved Aunt Lydia had been embezzling our inheritance. The room went silence as everyone took in the shock. Then I introduced Michael. He shared his story with the family, recounting his efforts to find us and the obstacles Aunt Lydia had placed in his way. He presented proof of his identity and the attempts he had made to reach us, showing letters he had sent and recordings on the phone calls that were never returned. My grandmother immediately recognized him and asked him why he left her daughter alone in the first place. He confessed that he never planned to do, that at all. Our mother knew this. Turns out our mother was telling the truth when she told us that her father had gone for a business purpose, explaining that he went abroad for a business venture. But his friends turned out to be a fraud, leading to his imprisonment for 3 years. When he came back, he learned that his wife had passed away and had no idea where his kids were. He tried very hard to find us, but could not. Later, when he got to know that we were with Aunt Lydia, he tried a lot to reach out, but she blocked all of the efforts, until finally he found me. The family was horrified by Aunt Lydia's actions and expressed their outrage. She initially denied it all, but the evidence, it's there. We called the police and she was taken away for fraud and embezzlement. It's been 6 months since and we're living happily with our dad. Though we miss our mother, our father has been trying very hard to make up for the time he missed with us. As for our aunt, the court ruled in our favor, ordering Lydia to repay the stolen money and serve time for her crimes. And as the cherry on top, I recently got to know that his children have cut her off too, as she can no longer provide her with any money. I guess she got what she deserved for keeping us away from our father. Anyways, that's it for my story. Thank you for the kind words. Goodbye.